Good morning. The time is now 11:42 a.m. and a quorum of the board is present. The State Board of Education special meeting of April 22nd, 2019 is called to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of agenda in order of priority. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda and the order of priority?
Motion to approve.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those please in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. So we are here today to launch the first two of a total of 5 candidate interviews for the next state superintendent of public instruction for the state of Michigan. You each should have a red packet. In that packet are 2 yellow forms. These are your interview questions. Each question has a member assigned to the question. I tried to do them in order. I did it off memory, so I hope that is correct in order. In addition, you also have a pink form. The pink form is a matrix based on the qualifications that we indicated were important to us for our next state superintendent. You will, as we're going through the interviews, there's a ranking of 1 to 10 for each of, there's 6 total areas. And so you can fill in the form either as we're going along or at the end of the interview as you so choose. You will keep these packets in the red folder and use them today and on Wednesday when we do our interviews then. The candidate names are in alphabetical order, not necessarily the order in which they are interviewing. So please make sure you're filling in the correct line for the candidate that we are interviewing at the moment. On Wednesday, when we are done with the interviews, we will begin deliberations and identify a smaller group to move forward to the second round of interviews, which will be held on May 7th. Are there any questions before we begin?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the firm going to be in presence where we're interviewing?
They are, I believe they're planning to be here Wednesday, correct?
While you deliberate.
They are planning to be here on Wednesday while we deliberate. They are not going to be here in person while we're conducting the interviews.
Are these being live streamed? I'm not seeing it online.
They are supposed to be, yes.
I don't see it. Okay, the link.
Yes.
Can we ask questions outside of these?
If you have a very, very, very brief follow-up question that is specifically tied to the question that we're asking, then please raise your hand, and if their time allows, we might be able to do that. I would just ask that you be very cognizant of the fact that we have so many questions in only a limited amount of time, which means that each question probably allows about 4 minutes of answer. So there's not a whole lot of time for follow-up questions. But if there's something absolutely pressing related to that question that you really feel that you need to know, please raise your hand and I think we can decide at that point. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Okay. So the first interview of today is Dr. Brenda Cassellius, who is joining us via Skype. Can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very well.
And can you see me?
Yes.
We can also see you, yes.
Okay, I can't see any of you.
See us.
Oh, you're probably just looking at the room, right?
Yes.
We are here. We will go around very briefly and introduce
Okay.
ourselves. My name is Cassandra Albridge. I'm the president of the State Board of Education.
Pamela Q,
Good to
and
meet you.
I am the vice president of the State Board of Education.
Michelle Fecto, I'm the secretary of the board.
Nikki Snyder, a member.
Tiffany Tilley, NASB rep.
Judy Pritchett, a member. Lupe Ramos Montini, a member.
Tom McMillan, treasurer.
And Marilyn Schneider is with us as well.
I'm the state board executive, staff to the board.
Okay. Just a reminder to fill out the top section of the interview questionnaire. And we're going to go ahead and get started by allowing you to take 3 to 5 minutes to introduce yourself, tell us why you'd like to be Michigan's next state superintendent of public instruction.
Well, thank you all for arranging for me to meet with all of you. And thank you very much for your consideration of my candidacy. Oh, now I can see you. That's good. Oh, and boy, I'm big on the screen as well. So I'm just really excited about Michigan and the direction that Michigan is taking currently, and also knew Brian as a colleague and have been in the role of commissioner now in Minnesota for the past 8 years, so it's a role I know very well. Very interested in Michigan because of the diverse population that you have there, the regional diversity as well as the economic diversity of both rural and urban schools, having Detroit and Flint public schools with concentrated levels of poverty. And it's always been my mission to create better equity for children, poor children, children who are disenfranchised, or children who are from rural communities where they don't have access to all the other amenities that maybe other children have. And so it's a very interesting time. I know that Michigan has a new governor who's expressed some interest in really doing some exciting things with the board around education. I'm excited to work with this state board. I've heard positive things about the way that you work together, and also I heard great things about the Michigan State Department of Education and some of the work they're doing with their RELs and around with superintendents. So it's a very exciting time, I think, for Michigan, and so I'd be excited to be part of that.
So hi, what is the purpose of public education?
Thank you for that. You know, historically, the purpose of education was to create a citizenry that was literate so that they could participate in a democracy. And then eventually it turned into more of, well, let's create some high schools because we need a good workforce because of the Industrial Revolution and manufacturing. And of course, Michigan was part of that big history with the Industrial Revolution. And then as we began to move into more of science and technology and new innovation and time of the Cold War, it became evident that we were becoming more globally connected and we were having more knowledge. And so there was this push that high school diploma was not enough, and we needed to push more toward more college and career-ready types of preparation for our youth and for our workforce. And so it became much more workforce development, much more intellectual, globally competitive. But what kind of has stranded through all of that was that there was not an equity in education for all peoples. You know, originally several people were left out. Some people were put in boarding schools, and it was a very inequitable opportunity for all citizens of America. And I think what we're in now is the opportunity that we have to be able to create equitable environments, not just equal environments, but ones that are equitable for all of our children and youth, so that they can participate into a rich democracy and also be good contributing citizens and have healthy families and be part of communities that thrive and contribute to each other's success and really success globally in our interconnectedness and our growing interconnectedness. I think also it's to be able to problem solve the real dilemmas of the world, you know, such as climate conditions and world peace and other things, so that we can cooperate with other nations and cooperate with each other and have good lives for everybody. So I think, you know, there's the broader sense globally of our interconnectedness, as well as really the more personal aspects of just personal efficacy and having good employment and being able to take care of your family and be part of a community and contribute.
Good. So it's my turn. During your first 90 days on the job, how might you go about determining the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the Michigan Department of Education, and what specific steps would you take?
Well, thank you for that. I would first look at all of the studies that were out there already around Michigan and checking out, has a SWOT analysis been done recently? And then I would go out and speak with the current chief who is in place, the past chief who was in place previous to the current one, and see what were kind of some of the issues that they were dealing with, what were some of the opportunities, what are the existing threats, are those still there, how were those dealt with. Then I would speak broadly to stakeholders, the board members, talk to the new governor and see what she was interested in doing, as well as superintendents, the teachers union, associations, stakeholder groups, the business community, philanthropic, nonprofit community, and to see where they're going. And then make sure that that's done regionally as well, to see what are the contextual differences between rural areas and some of the more urban or suburban areas, and what are their challenges. Because I think, my experience in Minnesota is that, they aren't always the same, and they can be quite different. And so, when you do your strategic plan, it's how do you look at those differences and similarities in terms of your direction. And so that's how I do my assessment. I'd bring someone along with me to record those discussions, and then try to bring back to the board some of the draft of what we found, and then how does that match with what the current strategic plan is, and are there any areas to fill in or any areas to strengthen.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi.
Describe your leadership style and success in a large, complex organization. Further, what do you consider to be your major strengths as a leader, and please give examples.
Thank you. I would say that my leadership style is collaborative and authentic. And so what you see is what you get. And, I try to be very transparent in my collaboration with broad cross-sector stakeholders. And I would say that my strengths are that I'm a strong communicator. I set a vision and can execute it. I've been able to demonstrate that both as an associate superintendent for middle schools in Memphis, Tennessee, where I led the achievement agenda for 31 middle schools, and we saw incredible progress over the tenure, as well as designing strategic plans at the high school redesign efforts in Minneapolis Public Schools. And then most recently, as commissioner the past 8 years, the governor's 7-point plan for better schools for better Minnesota, and then being able to communicate those effectively. And of course, as you know, the work that you're doing also in Michigan and with the Michigan State Department of Education with the Every Student Succeeds Act, and broad-based engagement we did hundreds of meetings and thousands of stakeholders to develop our strategic plan, and then to enact that, making sure that it aligns with what the legislative priorities were, the governor's priorities, as well as the priorities of and requirements of the federal government. And so we tried really hard to align all those efforts so that it was seamless for our school districts, and it made sense for teachers, and it wasn't too burdensome or cumbersome, but something that could actually help them teach and help students learn ultimately.
Hi, this is Tiffany Tilley.
Hi, Tiffany.
The Michigan Department of Education developed a top 10 in 10 plan. What are your thoughts on the plan? Are there any changes, additions, or deletions you would recommend to this plan?
Well, thank you. I think it's an extremely thoughtful plan, and it has all of the major aspects of school improvement and leadership and what's needed in terms of moving a system. We did a similar effort in Minnesota to look at our 7-point plan, but then we actually codified state law with our World's Best Workforce plan that looked at 5 key goals, and I see that you have about 7 goals in your plan as well to look at some student outcomes. So it is also aligned to student outcomes. It has measurable outcomes, and that's really important when you're trying to create and move an entire state. So I commend Brian and his team for having the vision to work with the state board to set forth a strategic plan where all of the players have a common language in which to share best practice and to move forward. I think if I was going to look at anything to strengthen within the plan, I would look at what contextually might be some differences in how that plan is actually applied and implemented in terms of rural schools, urban schools, suburban schools, looking at funding discrepancies and differences among schools, and what policy levers might be used at the legislature to, or within administrative authority within the board to actually move it forward and strengthen that. And then also, how is the agency, with that being the seventh goal, what are their core values and behaviors and belief systems as they move to do their work across the state and in implementing this plan, and what partners are specifically engaged in that work and who's responsible.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up on that.
Yeah,
We're doing pretty well on time.
Tom would like to ask a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, Brenda, just a quick follow-up on that. So as far as, I would imagine also on the top 10 and 10 that there could be things that if you were here, you might see a little bit differently than from the outside. Would you have any problem proposing changes? If you think something is just, as long as they were for the betterment of our kids' education, some of us don't feel these are written in any stone or anything, so would you have any problem with that?
I think it would be more about strengthening what's there. It's really a thoughtful plan. I think that there could maybe be a little bit greater equity focus on the plan, just more explicitly defined and common language defined across the scope of the plan. But I really do believe it's a very thoughtful plan. It talks about instruction and leadership and the importance of that. I know that there's already structures in place to share best practices across schools, which is really important, and highlighting some of those best practices. And so I think that those things are really important. There's also, the opportunity to do a deeper dive in those issues, such as English language learners or special education. And I know there's a question later around special education and the models around that. So I guess the only recommendations I would bring would be if I'm noticing any kind of holes that with the team there on some of the more specific, deeper issues you would do in terms of the professional learning community and building a professional learning community around the sharing of some of those more entrenched, challenging and difficult, equity issues for our students who are English language learners, special education, or even some of the discrepancies among racial and ethnic groups.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I don't ever have a problem bringing forward recommendations to the board for any kind of modifications. I'd want those to be evidence-based, though I wouldn't want them to be just something that I come and say, oh, I want to do this because, I heard it was a silver bullet or a quick fix. I'm not one to really sign on to quick fixes and silver bullets. I'm one more to kind of put my head down and do the work of the plan. And then if we notice from the data that it's not getting us what we want, then I'm quick to kind of try to come and say, well, this isn't getting us the results we need, so what can we do differently to try to adjust our plan? And if the board didn't want to take that direction, then, we don't take that direction, but I'm not shy about bringing up ideas that I've either heard in the field or had from other stakeholders who said they'd like to do something this way, and deliberating on that and valuing all voices in that.
Thank you.
Brenda, this is Judy. One of the most important tasks of the superintendent is advocating for the board's strategic plan for improving education with the executive office, the legislature, and educational special interest groups. How would you describe your experience and approach in doing this successfully? And how would you manage situations where the legislature and the executive office are in conflict related to educational policy and implementation?
Well, Judy, I love this question because for the past 8 years, this has been my job. When Mark Newton took office, we had a $6 billion deficit, and we had a full Republican control House and Senate. and then the governor obviously was Democrat. I was in my appointed position, and I was drinking from a fire hose, learning quite a bit about policy and reading all of the education statutes and going through all of the budgetary items because it was a budget year. And there was a lot of differences between us, philosophical, but what I found was the goals were still the same. Regardless of party, the K-12 leaders were interested in moving achievement for kids. They were interested in focusing on achievement gaps. Getting to the means of that was very different. And so it was a lot of late night conversations and discussions and deliberations and a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of meeting with teachers and making sure their voices were heard at the table. And principals and superintendents and the business community weighing in on their policies. And then, as you know, or may know, we went to shutdown in special session and then to shut down. So they became very difficult. And so just continuing to lean into those very difficult conversations and try to find where you can find common ground and trying to keep children at the center of all of those discussions at all times and making sure that we could just make progress and move forward. And that's what we did. We were able to get additional funding for schools, even in a $6 billion deficit, because the governor said every year he was governor, no exceptions, no excuses. He was going to put more money into public education. And, I found that when we could keep kids at the center, that it was just about a matter of priorities. And the means would sometimes fall aside, and the good ideas would emerge, and you could always find compromise. And so, I tried to keep a good, healthy respect for the legislature and their role, and then try to work through what the governor wanted to get done and kind of that middle person to try to find a compromise. And then, of course, the next 2 years were full Democratic control. And sometimes that's just as hard. I say sometimes it's just as hard working with your friends because you think you can get everything done and you just can't get everything done. And then it was split government between Republican and Democrat. And so, that presented its own unique challenges of trying to get the House and Senate on the same page and then get them on the page with the governor. And then we went back to full Republican control with the governor then in his last 2 years. And so I've had it all, and I've enjoyed it all. I've enjoyed working with stakeholders across all sectors in order to move the agenda and make progress for kids.
Thank you.
The next question is, how have you been able to build effective working relationships with unions and other organized educational groups? What about the business community? Give specific examples.
So I have a very good working relationship with our teachers union and with our MAPE union. That was, those are our unions within the AFSCME within the state agency. And it took a while to redevelop all of those relationships and redevelop trust with everybody. And you do that by meeting regularly with folks, listening to them and being present, not sending a delegate to that, but going yourself and being open to hearing their ideas and working through the challenges and difficult conversations. So I have a really good working relationship with them. With the business community, we had a good working relationship with the business community. We always were sure to include them on our working commissions, our work groups that we had. They're part of our P20 council. I met with them individually and spoke with them individually. We didn't always have the same agenda, and there were some significant policies in which we differed. For example, exit exams. It was our position to end exit exams in the state, and they did not agree with that position. Even though we were replacing it with the ACT, giving the ACT to all students and raising the level of rigor in our graduation rates, our graduation requirements changed to including Algebra 2 and chemistry or physics as a science requirement. So we were raising the bar and the rigor with our course taking and our graduation requirements, but they perceived that there was a lowering of it by eliminating the exit exams. We never did get to see eye to eye on that. We agreed to disagree on those things, But I think if you ask the business community, they would say that I was a good listener and a respectful collaborator with them, even though we may not agree always on one policy. We found ways to agree on other policies, like on the ESSA plan. There were many aspects of the ESSA plan that we did agree on, and some of the other teacher licensure policies and things like that. So we didn't disagree on everything, but there were some things that we did, and then we tried to find common ground on the other things.
Hi, Brenda. Tom McMillan. As State Superintendent of Public Education, how would you ensure accountability within the Michigan Department of Education? How would you judge your own effectiveness as a State Superintendent? Please describe the internal accountability system you would put in place.
Thank you. I think there are both formal and informal ways to judge yourself around accountability. Of course, the chief among those are our ESSA accountability system, which looks at test scores and graduation rates, English language learner proficiency, and in Minnesota, we look at the other quality indicator of chronic attendance, and I think those are similar in Michigan. And so I think that, those are kind of the more formal measures that you would hold, with your scorecard, and public reporting of those regularly to your public is one way to hold yourself accountable. But I think another way to hold yourself accountable is to be open and available to the public personally. So everybody in the state was given my personal cell phone number, and so they could call me for anything. And they had my personal email, and then I held monthly phone calls with the superintendents. We had a monthly third Wednesday call of the month, where I took their questions, and they could ask questions. This is especially useful during the legislative session because I could hear directly from them, and they could hear directly from me on what we were talking about. And then I think if people remark about your agency and they say positive things about it, and you're in the paper for positive results, and if superintendents are remarking positively, and teachers are remarking positively, and parents are remarking positively, that's the more informal indication that you're on the right track, you're meeting people's needs, and people are remarking positively about your work.
Given the changing dynamics of public education, what do you see as the most critical issues facing the Michigan education system in the next 3 to 5 years?
So I believe Michigan is in a similar place as most states in terms of the threats that are facing it. Certainly with the goal of 10 and 10, Michigan would like to move up the ranking among states and be a nation leader. So there's the goal, the aspirational goal, to be able to do that. But I think Michigan is much like other states in that they face the threats of inadequate funding and chronic underfunding of our school system, our teacher supply and recruitment and retention, and the professionalism of the teacher practice. And the lack of resources going to and supporting teachers, the competitiveness of teacher pay compared to the workforce that's out there now. It's very challenging to recruit young teachers into the field because they have other opportunities now with lower unemployment rates to take other positions that provide additional pay. So I think teacher supply is definitely a challenge. And then I think another one is the growing wealth disparity among families and services to families. So I think that's very challenging. And then I think the final one is just public confidence in public education, and really being able to secure the public's confidence and trust. Of course, we've seen in Minnesota and others the growth of charter schools as evidence of the lack of public confidence in our traditional public schools, and kind of those contentious difficult conversations and around school choice and disinvestment in public education for other options for parents who, are not seeing the school system. So I think declining enrollments and underfunding, teacher supply, and public confidence are probably the core issues at hand. And then, of course, this, societally, the growth of the gap between wealthy kids and poor kids.
This is Pamela again. What does an effective accountability system look like? If you were to design one from scratch, what elements would you include and what would you eliminate? How would the system hold schools and districts accountable for student achievement, I'm sorry.
So thanks, Stephanie. I think, I don't...
Pam.
This is a tough one. Pam, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks, Pam. I see you guys. This is such a tough one for me, having been a chief for 8 years and also an educator for 30, and just watching accountability systems come and go, and trying to revise them and make them better. And, but I do believe that these test-based accountability systems have failed. So I think that we've been trying it for 20 years. Our students have not improved to the point that we would like them to. And so it's hard, but that's what we have. So we have to work with what we have now as we transition to what will be better. And so if I were to think about, and we did a lot of thinking over the past 24 months with ESSA being rewritten, on how can we rewrite it, and we really wanted to get toward more well-rounded measures, but we didn't have the statewide data capacity in which to collect, common data from every single school, around course taking, for instance, and around schedules and around, PE classes being offered or advanced placement classes being offered, or concurrent enrollment, or science in the elementary school, or what arts programming, or other supportive services like number of counselors and other things, and other measures. So I think that those in-school factors it's been tough to find data systems that would support being able to measure more qualitative measures within schools that I think would be really useful to parents as they try to select and choose schools for their children. And so I'd like to see a system that had more of those well-rounded components in it, but we still get stuck in looking at test-based accountability. Even though we're looking at growth more, it's still based on a test. Attendance and graduation rates, and chronic attendance and graduation rates as our key indicators, because they're easier to distill and to put out in terms of our data analytics statewide for comparisons, because we're still expected to compare and rank schools so that we can then adequately support them. But what I found most useful in that type of system was that then we at least get broad brushes and we're able to look at where the inequities exist. We get to look at our standards being taught. Is there good alignment between the assessment and the standard? I often say that, it's not a gap necessarily that kids are not learning. It's a gap on what's being taught and what's being tested. That's one thing I have absolutely found in my 8 years, is that teachers are teaching, but they're often not teaching what's on the test that we're giving them at the state level. They may be testing and getting great results on the MAP test or the NWA test or some other tests, DIBELS or FAST or whatever it is, but they're not doing well on our comprehensive assessments, or as well as we'd like them to be doing on our individual assessments or state assessments. And so, but it does provide a nice indicator over time, multiple measures of how students are aligned to the standards, how teachers are teaching the standards, which areas we maybe need to strengthen, and then what those outcomes are, and generally for large groups. But I don't think that it's good for any individual high-stakes decisions, in terms of student placement and that sort of thing, unless it's over many, many years. that you're looking at these measures. So I think if I had the opportunity to remake an accountability system, it would be one that would be, at least the in-school portions of that would be one that used standardized testing, but for more larger accountability at the district level around curriculum decisions, and at the state level around standards and decisions and resource decisions for who we might provide additional support and professional learning and training to our teachers and school leaders. But then I think there are other measures, and maybe we'll get to this a little later in a question about out-of-school factors, where you look at other measures of homelessness and mobility and poverty and health access that and preschool access that impact whether a child's going to be successful or not in school, and barriers to their learning, so that we can mitigate some of those factors so that they can be successful.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. All right, so the next question, by the way, there are 24 questions. We're on question number 11. This is Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, sure. So describe best practices in school turnaround, including the role of the State Department of Education.
Well, thank you. This is something I'm very, very proud of with our team at the Minnesota Department of Education. We actually won an award for our regional centers of excellence. When I first interviewed with the governor for the position of commissioner, I shared with him that if we really wanted to move an entire state, that we couldn't expect teachers to come to Roseville or St. Paul to do the work. We had to work alongside teachers, and we had to identify teachers who were getting great results and where good success was happening, and then ask those teachers to step up and share those best practices with other teachers, because teachers learn best from other teachers, and they learn best in the classroom with modeling. And so we designed a program to work alongside our teachers. It's called the Regional Centers of Excellence. We funded that with our school improvement money at first, and we were able to work with our comprehensive schools, and then later we were able then to secure some additional funding, $1 million from the legislature to expand those centers. We had 3 of them out in the regions in our rural areas, and then we added 3 more, and so we had 6 total. And in those regional centers, we had equity specialists. We have specialists who work with reading, mathematics, special education, and those specialists are known regionally by the experts there, and we work through our cooperatives with them. So it's not work that we have to do necessarily at the department. It's work that we work in collaboration with and leadership with our local cooperatives throughout the state. And so that's been a very productive and good use of resources, both human and financial. And it's been a good example of a collaborative partnership that's really been successful. And so that's the way that I think a school turnaround works well. And then personally, as a superintendent, we worked in Memphis and to turn around middle schools there. And what I found were the keys to doing that was really strong leadership, highly effective teachers who felt like a family, who felt like they were supported by the leadership, who had enough autonomy in their classroom to do what they had to do to get done for kids. We ended corporal punishment so that we could have positive school environments in which children could learn and thrive. And then we had rich, well-rounded, rigorous, challenging academics. And those are really the key components to any good school turnaround at the school level and at the district level, and then support systems at the district level. With our World's Best Workforce Law, we were working to support district level systemic change. Oftentimes teachers and school leaders will, fuss a little bit when districts have initiatives or the state has unfunded mandates that that come down from on high. So we tried to create programming that was much more organic at the school level, where they understand their context best. The parents and community know what is needed for the kids, and everybody comes together. So we do a needs assessment, we develop a plan, and then we monitor that plan through implementation science and supportive advocates within the regional centers. And then we support the districts so that they don't interfere too much, but that they are properly resourcing and staffing their schools so that they can be successful.
Thank you.
Question number 12 is, if we were to talk to your greatest critic in your current position and or organization, what would their criticism be of you, and what would be their greatest compliment?
I think that and this is with all candor, I think that some of the critics who have wanted to push some policies that the governor and I haven't agreed on would say that we're partial to taking the teacher side and of things, and that we defend teachers. But they would also say that they were included at the table, that we were open to listening to them, that we were collaborative, and that we sought to find a win-win and compromise where we could. I would definitely say that they would say that I would fight for equity and fight for kids and put kids first, even though we may not always agree on policy.
This is Tiffany Tilley.
Hi, Tiffany. I got the name right.
How would you define the role of the state superintendent and the State Board of Education? What is your understanding of the relationship between the superintendent and the board?
So I would say that we're partners, and that the board is the policy-making body of the schools, and that they enact the policies that the state legislature would put down to schools, or that they themselves create for local school boards, and that they monitor those, and that the superintendent is there to help the board administer those policies and to be the voice of public education nationally in partnership with the board, and to champion their schools. Also to be the research arm for the board, to do the rulemaking and guidance out to schools, and to promote the policies that are established by the board, policy development, research, and enactment of those policies, and enactment of the strategic plan to bring it alive in partnership with the board.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that, if that's okay.
Also the fiduciary pieces as well.
In Minnesota, can you talk, did you have a board? Were they elected? What role did they play?
So Minnesota does not have a board of education. They're one of, I think, 2 states or 3 that do not have a state board of education. It might be North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. But we have 201 legislators, who are very interested in public education, and so we did not have a board of education there. And so the position of commissioner is appointed by the governor. So I'm also I also was in an appointed position, but we worked very closely with our K-12 chairs and our P20 council.
Thank you.
Brenda, as state superintendent, you will be responsible for a large budget. What are some principles that you believe are key to building and managing a budget? And what do you foresee as your role in the state budgetary process?
Thank you. So Governor Dayton always said a budget is a reflection of your values. And so that's my core principle. And then second principle is find every efficiency you can within the budget in order to place it with the most vulnerable kids as a second principle. And the third principle is get the money as close as you can to the people who are actually needing it in order to get good outcomes for children, and do that equitably. So I've supported student weighting. In Minnesota, we have a lot of categorical aids. We fought for American Indian Education Aid. Our tribal contract schools were getting funded about half by the federal government as every other student within Minnesota. So we fought for tribal contract aid to be equalized so that they could get similar funding as all other students in Minnesota. So it was always having an equity lens on the funding so that it got to our most vulnerable kids, but making sure that we had additional revenues for specific student groups that needed additional support. So we had a funding stream in Minnesota called compensatory revenue that was based on the number of students who were living in poverty in schools, as well as concentrated factors. We have an achievement and integration program that worked at closing achievement gaps within schools, that looked at racial diversity within schools and supports for schools to have more integrated learning environments, as well as structured so that students from racial backgrounds could have the support needed in which to achieve. And then we extended the EL funding, the English Language Learner funding, during our term from 5 years to 7 years, because the research showed that students needed more time and teachers needed additional resources, especially if we had a career and college ready expectation for all students, so that when students were proficient in English, we wanted to make sure that they could handle academic English at the rigorous level of advanced placement and international baccalaureate or college level coursework that they may do with concurrent enrollment. And so, always making sure that when you're creating a budget, you're looking for efficiencies so that you could put it on the kids that need it the most, create equity among those dollars so that they get to equally out for those specific student populations that need it, and then to look for new revenue sources if you even need to find new revenue sources in order. For instance, early childhood was an area that the governor really pushed for, and we were able to make significant progress in, and we had to develop new revenue in order to be able to do that. And we also had to find revenue within the budget and new revenue in order to pay back the money that was borrowed, the nearly $2 billion that was borrowed from the schools during the recession.
Thank you.
Next question.
And I think my role would be to provide all of that information to the board and to be prepared with and having talked to stakeholders about their needs and what they need, and listen to groups and go out in schools and spend time and understand better what the needs are out there within Michigan, and then to look at where the revenue sources are, where are the efficiencies, and then bring recommendations to the state board so that they can consider the budget and decide what they want to bring forward to the legislature.
Okay, next question. How would you handle decisions that are unpopular with stakeholders but educationally necessary for the state education system to meet the needs of all children? Please cite actual examples.
So, I've touched on this a little bit. I don't have a problem leaning in to difficult conversations. I think that they're very important, and really, so much of what we're engaged in now is all about difficult conversations. We have to have conversations around race and equity, racism. We have to have issues about structural systemic failure. We have to have conversations about chronic underfunding, teacher professionalism, school leadership, community disengagement. These are all really challenging and difficult conversations to have. Even, charter school and choice or testing. I mean, all of these things carry with them possible lightning rods. And so, you just try to find the issue. When you're discussing one particular issue, you try to get to the source of the root of what you're discussing, get to what's going to be best for children, define the problem very clearly, get to shared understanding, and then be clear about how and which ways you want to address it with multiple different ways you can address it. And then try to bring about consensus with the ways that you address it, either one way or multiple ways that you can address it. You may address it with funding, you may address it through policy, you may address it through some sort of administrative guidance. One example is lunch shaming. In Minnesota, we had school systems that were found by a legal law group to be shaming kids for lunch. I was just beside myself. And I had to have the difficult conversation with those superintendents. I called them all that were found in the study and said, are you aware of this going on? Many of them were not aware of the practices that were going on, such as hand stamping, taking away and throwing away food in front of the students' peers, sending out notes to families that were challenging and difficult, or taking them to debt collection. All of those things were really difficult conversations to have, and so we convened and talked about new guidance and new policies with the school superintendents, and then we passed some laws around school lunch shaming. So we had hearings and legislative discussion about new policies prohibiting lunch shaming. So that's just one example. We had a number of difficult conversations, obviously.
What's the most difficult decision you've had to make in the last 2 or 3 years, and what did you learn?
So I think that one the really, I wouldn't say it was difficult for me personally, because of my strong belief system around LGBTQ rights. But we had a lot of pushback around our transgender toolkit that we did for school districts. We had noticed in our recent school safety survey, because we do our school safety survey every couple years, and we had noticed that after our school bully law that we passed, we were expecting school bullying to go down, which we did see school bullying go down. But when we looked closer at the questions, we noticed that our transgender students were 2-3 times more likely to be bullied and to commit suicide. And I was just taken back that our students were just feeling so unwelcomed and so unhappy in our schools, and that there weren't any real support systems there. And our team really felt as though schools had been calling and asking, what should we do? I mean, we need help. We have these students in our school system and we don't know what to do. So we had our school safety and technical assistance team do research on best practices across the nation, look at states who were making and leading on this area, and we started to draft a toolkit. It was optional for school districts to use, so that they would have resources in which to have these very difficult conversations with their school communities, and not feel like they're at a loss and make mistakes, and sometimes being even more hurtful to children and their families. And so we created this, and when we did, it created a lot of interest. And so we held additional hearings and created additional meetings with folks who were against it, and leaned in and allowed for the conversation to happen, allowed for the good feedback to happen. There were some pieces and feedback that was given that we made some changes and adjustments to our toolkit in response to the feedback that we received from opponents. And I think we had a better result with the final toolkit. And I think people are feeling much more comfortable with it, although there is still some opposition to it. I do believe that it's a resource now that people feel that they were able to give voice to, and that they did see that there were changes made to it.
I have a follow-up question. Okay. Brenda, can you describe any other areas that you have explored school safety and climate and culture?
Yes. So recently we just, went through all of these policy review in order to look at school safety and, because of the many school shootings that we've been seeing. And we were able to, last legislative session in 2018, put forward a school safety bill. The governor and I were pushing for stronger common sense gun restrictions, like age and looking at loopholes and the trigger one, I can't remember what it's called, red flag law, and some of the other more common sense one where there was much more, or universal background check, some of those where there were much more common ground and common sense with those, as well as we were able to secure some facility funding to secure our front entrances. It wasn't enough, but we were able to secure some of that. And then mental health services for some of the prevention services and counseling services for students. And so there was good bipartisan agreement on most of those policies, not the gun ones. We just couldn't find common ground there, but we were able to find a common ground around the mental health services, some of the school safety and facility improvement funding, and funding for intermediate school districts who work with some of our students who have the most challenging behavior. And we have a school safety technical assistance team, so we work collaboratively with our Department of Public Safety on evacuation drills, on crisis management and communications when there are emergencies at schools. Also, we work with our transportation department on safe routes to school as another area that we work. And then we work, of course, with our Department of Human Services on our school-based mental health grants.
Thank you. Can you discuss in detail efforts you have taken personally to raise sustained student achievement and the results, and what elements of these efforts should be present in the Michigan Department of Education strategic plan for educational improvement in this state?
Well, I'll talk briefly just about graduation rates. One of the things we did with our first waiver was to look at the cell size for our graduation rates. Because about 50% of our high schools we found weren't included in any part of the accountability system, and really truly were not looking at all student groups within the graduation rate, or because they had less than 40 kids, they didn't count up toward our total graduation rate at the state. So we lowered our cell size to 20. And that allowed high schools then to get additional support and to focus on more of our high schools in the system. We also reported out high schools at 10 students. So we held them accountable for 20, but reported out at 10. And then we disaggregated the graduation rate. I still think Minnesota may be the only state in the nation that it has within their accountability system a disaggregated graduation rate for 67% or less. I've not come across another state. I'm not sure if Michigan does, but most states are looking at the overall graduation rate of 67% or less, whereas Minnesota, we're looking at any student group that's under 67% and intervening and providing support to those students. And that has made a huge difference, I believe, with lowering of the cell size, reporting out an even lower cell size, and then looking at the graduation rate for all student groups. And that's really created a stronger focus in counting more students and making sure all students are counted. So that's one way that we've sustained results. The other is our regional centers of excellence going out and working alongside school districts to raise student achievement, to look at implementation science and ensure that what school districts are saying and schools are saying they're going to do, they actually are doing, and they're resourcing to do that work. And so being good advocates and good partners in that work. And then focusing on literacy, early literacy, preschool through age 8, and making sure that students have a strong start to school and a strong foundation in literacy is key to improving results. And we did a lot of work with Michael Folan's group, with our school leaders and the Elementary Association on training and preparing elementary school principals around leading in a culture of change and leading in and for literacy leadership.
Related to this question. Tiffany would like to ask a follow-up question.
What was the graduation rate when you started, and what was the graduation rate when you ended?
Ooh, I just looked at that for African American kids. I don't know it overall. They're going to be released on tomorrow, actually, I think. And so the graduation rate when we started for Minnesota was, for Black kids, was something like 46.4% in 2010. And then we recalculated it back, so it's from 2012, and that it's improved now, I think around 18 to 20%. It'll be out tomorrow, but we've improved quite a bit. What's been really great about our graduation rate is we've seen improvement every year in our graduation rate for students and all students, but we've also seen it for all student groups. And so that's been really promising. And it's been slower for some groups, like our American Indian student group. I think they had a very low graduation rate, and I think they're upwards and over 50% now, but that's still not good enough. And I think our African American rate is somewhere around 67%. And so in our overall graduation rate, I think it last was at 82.4 or 82.2%. And I think we started at something around 76. I just don't have those numbers right in front of me, but definitely tomorrow they'll have the longitudinal data out from 2012 until 2018.
Okay, Brenda, this is question number 18, and this is
Can
Pamela.
Sorry, Pamela. One other thing is they're historically high graduation rates, and so that's what's really exciting. But also the remediation rate needed for students when they go to college has also gone down, and so it's gone down considerably. And so not only are students graduating at a higher rate, we're seeing high numbers of students of color going to college and not needing remediation as well. And so that's a good indicator. And we stayed the top state for ACT scores, and that also is an indicator of the high standards that we have. And that's the ACT score of states that more than 50% of their student body is taking the test. We don't score higher, and we're not number one where they only give it to seniors. We give it to juniors and seniors, but we wouldn't score higher than, say, New Hampshire, who gives it to a smaller amount of seniors. But any state that's giving it to more than 50%, we're number one.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. So question number 18 is, what do you see as the relationship of the Department of Education with local school districts and intermediate school districts?
So I spoke a little bit about this, and I'm not as certain about how Michigan works with their intermediate school districts. The intermediate school districts are more like our cooperatives that we have throughout regionally. And so if it's like that, it's much like the regional centers that I discussed earlier. But if it's more like the intermediates that we have intermediate districts who work with other districts around services for special education students.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're, yes.
Similar?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's similar.
So, so we work with them just like any other district and fight at the legislature to give them support just like any other district, and they participate in our professional development, professional learning, both at the leadership level. I have a really good working relationship with our intermediate superintendents because they serve some of our most vulnerable students who have very complex needs. And so we've actually been working several years to have services for some of our students that even our intermediates are struggling with and providing support. We had a $4 million legislative ask for additional professional development for teachers on de-escalation and crisis management, as well as worked with our Department of Human Services around mental health supports and more of a medical model for some of our students who have very complex behavioral medical needs, have had historical trauma, and really, really challenging behaviors and some of our more violent situations and cases. And so very thankful to we have incredible superintendents who are leading our intermediates right now, and the courageous work that they're doing to redesign their programs so that we can meet students' needs and be sure that our students are getting an excellent education, but also getting the support that they need to work through some of the really challenges the life challenges that they've had.
Thank you.
Michelle again. Okay, so the U.S. Department of Education has identified Michigan's special education programs as needing intervention due to poor academic performance and low graduation rates. What steps would you take as state superintendent to improve special education?
So thank you. Generally, I have a philosophy of inclusionary education, and so that's the general sense of my direction is let's get kids as included as possible, and develop strategies around that. I inherited a school when I was assistant principal at Washburn High School that was 80% out of compliance, and the state was also not in compliance. And so they developed a system of tiered schools for tiered support, and we were a tier 3 school. And I hired a coordinator at my high school, and we worked to develop teachers, and those teachers that couldn't be developed, we worked to move on and re-established our entire special education programming at my high school. And when I left, we were 99% in compliance, and only 99 because we got a new kid that day. So, we felt like we needed to make sure that we were in compliance, but also that the services we provided to children were appropriate to their disability, that families and communities were engaged in the services that were provided, and that our teachers were well trained to be able to handle the myriad of uniqueness that students brought to the classroom. I think also there's this general sense of that there's too much paperwork for teachers, and then our teachers aren't able to focus on children, and I think that that's true. I think that there's work to be done there. I wasn't able in Minnesota to get the advocates together as much as I'd like to reduce paperwork as much as we would have liked, and then work on training for paraprofessionals and with teachers and how they interact with children around the curriculum, and then transitionary and life skills. I think we could do really more robust programming with students around life skills, transitionary programs. And I think, unfortunately, because of the way that the graduation rate is calculated by the federal government, a lot of times students are graduated who maybe could use additional transitionary services, unfortunately, to protect the school graduation rate. And so I've tried for years to try to fix this because I think it's not fair to students who need that extra service. And I also think it's not fair to schools when they'd like to keep the students. Like in Minnesota, we fund until age 21 students, and it makes sense that we would provide additional services for students who need them. But at times, I think that they get graduated and they're not quite ready yet because it doesn't look well on your graduation rate.
So when you said that teachers get training, is it all general ed teachers as well as special ed teachers that get the training?
We do some training, and I know that localized school districts do other training, and we also train the district. Each district's required to have an administrator for special education in Minnesota, and so we do some of that training. We also do compliance monitoring for special education, so we do all of that at the agency. But we try to work alongside our school districts in terms of all of that. I would say that teachers get training, paraprofessionals get training. We have special guidance around the qualities of paraprofessionals. I'm sure Michigan does as well. And so providing that additional training and ongoing professional development for our paraprofessionals as well as our teachers is really critical. And I think it's critical for general education teachers as well to know, have inclusionary practices. You know, especially for students and autistic students who often present very differently from one another. It's not, you know, you can't just teach one way and that works for one student with autism and another student with autism. You have to be able to help teachers understand that and working with the parents to understand the unique behaviors and conditions of each child and their uniqueness and how they present, and then how they learn, and then be able to be willing to go from, you know, 504 up to an IEP in terms of what kinds of services they would need.
I have a real important one with the follow-up. I really do. This is
Very short,
Okay,
please.
real quickly, I've dealt with this issue a lot. The state role really is the appeals process, I believe. And there's a lot of people that feel it's very unfair and not doing very well. What does a good special ed appeals process, appealing decisions from the locals to the state, look like to you?
To me, it would look like really listening to parents, having trained professionals to be able to do initial fact-finding, to be able to document that fact-finding and understand the differences of opinion between the parent and the, you know, the family and the teachers. In terms of the services that are provided, and being able to listen. Sometimes we use the Office of, losing my mind on this now, the Office of Hearing and Appeals. It's not the right name for it, but we have a, can't believe I'm losing my mind on it. Yeah, administrative offices who hear those for us, and that way then it's more objective. I mean, we do the investigation of it and work with school districts around that, but then sometimes Office of Administrative Hearings does the actual hearings for us. And sometimes that has a cost associated with it, but we think it's important to have an objective outside evaluator of the differences when possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki?
That's true also for when we have appeals on behavior that come through, like expulsions and other things that would come through. We would do initial fact finding and then you know, have an appeal process. And sometimes if they're very complex cases, we might have the Office of Administrative Hearing do those.
I'm going to just add on to that last question one more thing too. Is there an ombudsman or something of that nature that parents have access to? Or is that
In
something you would
Minnesota?
recommend? Mm-hmm.
Well, my expectation is that everybody acts as an ombudsman in the state agency, and that we always get back to parents in a timely way. And so we have a call tree at the agency, and so folks, you know, we have someone, an actual person who answers the phone, and we'll route the call to the right person who can handle it, and then we all have a service mentality of answering the questions and getting the parent or whomever needs service to the best person possible. And then again, I mean, everybody has my phone number. So oftentimes I'll get called, and then if I get called, I call people back and say, I want you to be in touch with the assistant commissioner, and they will, you know, our kind of protocols get back within 24 hours. And so that kind of acts as the ombudsman to kind of funnel out where parents, where the handshake happens between myself or the assistant commissioner to the actual person who will begin the investigation, or provide guidance and support to the parent, or help the parent access resources that can help them advocate better for their child.
We have about 20 minutes left, so.
So question 20 is, what experience have you had in working in a complex organization that serves a highly diverse population, including those with special needs, diverse socioeconomic and educational levels, culture, race, and ethnicity?
So I can be quick with this question. I've always been in systems that are highly diverse and that are mostly urban, although I've learned a lot in my past 8 years. The governor often jokes saying, man, I told her, get out into the rural areas because you're going to have to talk to real Minnesotans. And within 2 days, I was up in Perham, Minnesota, visiting and talking with folks who live in our rural areas and trying to understand their issues better. And so that was most of my time, and most of my windshield driving was all around outside, because I knew and was colleagues with most of the folks in the metro area. So I spent a lot of time out there. But in terms of culture, race, ethnicity, economic levels, I was in Memphis, Tennessee. I was in Minneapolis and St. Paul as an administrator. I did serve for a few years as a diversity coordinator and as a teacher in a suburban district that was not very diverse. It was Burnsville Public Schools at the time, and now Burnsville has about 60% of its students who are coming from diverse backgrounds, and so it's really shifted. And we see this demographic shift happening everywhere. Many of our rural areas in Minnesota also have been seeing rapid demographic shift as well. And so we've been partnering with our it's called Minnesota Minority Education Partnership, and it used to be called that. Now it's called Minnesota Education Equity Partnership, that goes out and works with communities around racial diversity and having conversations around race and the shifting demographics to help communities move forward. And so lots and lots of experience in this area. Plus, I was born to a single mother. I am multiracial myself. I'm African American, Lebanese, Irish, and German. And I grew up in public housing, and I also was a single mother for 10 years. And so I understand personally the issues and have worked professionally. I also worked as a special education paraprofessional when I started my career. I worked at St. Joseph's Home for Abused and Neglected Children as an intake worker, so I was able to see that side of it and design their learning environments and learning opportunities at St. Joe's for a few years. And so I've had also those experiences.
So, because I have a question.
Very, very quickly.
I'll be
'cause we
quick.
are
This
out
is
of
my
time,
first
Pam.
out of time, out of order question, my first. So, one of the questions that I would ask, and I think it fits between question number 19 and question number 20. In October of 27, Michigan scored, was an Annie Casey report, and I think this is very important. Michigan scored worse in education outcomes for African American children. And I'm just wondering, what are some of your thoughts? And I've heard some of the things that you've said as far as making sure that you're looking at the differences in the different school systems. But I just want to hear a little bit about your thoughts on making sure that we're overcoming that statistic.
So there's a lot to do with African American children. Obviously, I'm African American, so this is super close to my heart, and part of the reason I also want to work in Michigan, because there's a large population of African American kids, and my opportunity to make a difference potentially by becoming a leader there. And so, there's several things you can do. Is one, the research is very clear that if there are teachers and school leaders and role models who look like them, this is absolutely makes a difference in their ability to persist and to feel their own sense of efficacy. And so that's critical. Oftentimes, unfortunately, race and poverty go hand in hand. This is true especially for African American families. And so trying to find ways to support families within the system, with jobs and with adult education, opportunities, career pathways, opportunities for students, setting high expectations for students, and making sure that they have the same equitable resources and opportunities that other children have is absolutely critical. Making sure that our white teachers are culturally competent and understand African American culture and the cultures of other children as well, whether that's our Hispanic students or Somali students or other students. And which is another reason to, when you look at the overall Black demographic, you know, they're the Black Americans, and then there's Black Africans, and East African is very different, but it shows up in the test score the same way. And so I think that, you know, understanding underneath the Asian demographic, or understanding underneath the African American demographic or the Hispanic demographic are very different student groups and cultural experiences that families and children have. And so respecting all of that and valuing that and celebrating that within the school culture, making sure that your curricular materials and your pedagogy that you use is appropriate to multiple communities. And for our Hispanic students and Latinx students, it's absolutely important that you see their language as an asset, that you see their culture as an asset. We did extensive work with our American Indian population and seeing their language and culture as an asset, and this is very true of African Americans as well. So those are things that I would role model. Those are things that I would support and encourage throughout the school system, and that's how I would address it.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to answer that.
Thank you.
This is Tiffany again. What do you consider to be your major strengths as a leader? What would you target for personal or professional improvement if you are hired for this position? And then I want to add to that, can you tell us some measurables of how you turn those districts around? Because we need somebody that can really turn Michigan around.
Okay. So I would say that I'm an effective communicator, that I am visionary, but sometimes you get the vision, but you don't get the execution. I actually have executed multiple strategic plans and gotten results from those. I'm able to build a strong team around me, and that doesn't mean I'd come into Michigan and hire all new people. That means that I would find the right people, put them in the right spots, and help them excel to doing their best, because they would love being at work and doing the work, because I believe my job is to feed the team and to hold them accountable and set high expectations, but to give them the autonomy to do their job so that we can execute on our shared goals and our shared values. I think in terms of what I would need for is, I don't know Michigan that well. And I don't want to assume that what I've done in the past will work in Michigan. I think it's important to understand the context of the community, the readiness of the players in Michigan, assess the both human capital and the partnerships that are there to get the work done, and the willingness to get the work done, to create a new vision and a new hope around it, and cheerlead and rally everybody around that common vision, and then begin to execute it. The way that I've done that before is in Memphis. We were able to close achievement gaps and faster than any other system within the state. We grew at 14.5% in mathematics. We grew 22.2% in reading. This was from 2003 to 2008. And we were able to close the gaps, raise achievement, put kids in the excelled category. And for special ed students, I think it was 26% gain in their achievement. I already told you about the fast-growing rate of our student groups and graduation rates in Minnesota. So, those are the things that we've been able to accomplish, and with a strong team in place, principals who were on fire for the work, and teachers who were given the support that they needed to get it done.
Thank you.
Brenda, you have answered part of this question already, so I'm just going to give you an opportunity to expand a little bit. Can you discuss your experience in creating, implementing, and/or overseeing policies and procedures related to school and student safety? So I know you had kind of piggyback some responses.
Right, so I'll be brief then. So one thing we're super proud of in Minnesota is our bully law. We had like a 4-sentence school bully law, and we did a lot of work on passing the school bully law. So just really, really excited that we passed that and that we're seeing evidence of that working now within our schools. Our school safety and technical assistance team works with parents and works with school districts and teachers to be able to address school safety issues, to be both on the prevention side and finding best practices like PBIS and responsive classroom and restorative justice, to intervention support and communication support when there is a crisis. We partner with our Department of Public Safety on that. We partner with our transportation on Safe Routes to School. I've already shared about, school monitoring that through surveys with our school safety survey, and we also report it out on our website if kids feel safe and that they have an adult who cares about them in school. So those are kind of some of the questions that we report on our report card in terms of student engagement and connectedness to school. So those are really important. And then, of course, we handle all of the school safety facility requests and grants that go out to schools.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. What will public education be like in the future?
Put on our glasses and try to our looking glass and try to figure that out. I think public education is going to look very different in the future. I think we're going to see this next round of ESSA testing accountability give us probably the same kind of results that we've always gotten. However, I do think there will be some outliers in some states who work beyond that to really start show some really creative, innovative progress. And I think that's going to be steeped in really understanding the role of social emotional learning and wellness and how that plays. It's going to be the school systems that are able to leverage across systems and across sectors to impact those out-of-school factors such as housing, joblessness, health access, food security, all of those other things that impact whether a child is prepared or not prepared when they come to school, or whether they've had historical trauma that hasn't been dealt with in terms of support for the family and for mental health services to children early on. School systems that are ahead of us on preschool, making sure that kids have early learning all the way from prenatal up until they are going to kindergarten, and making sure that they're supportive. On the other end, in terms of students who are older students, I think we're going to see 12th grade maybe be optional in the future. We're going to see a greater blending between community colleges and high schools. We're going to see students expanding on this gap year and doing more service projects, more study abroad, global connectedness, more online opportunities or distance learning opportunities for students as we integrate technologies and artificial intelligence technologies that are going to disrupt for a while, but then are going to become tools for teachers if they're done right. I mean, we certainly don't want, beamed in teachers who have a hologram or something like that, but I do think that teachers are going to be facilitating learning quite differently than they do now using AI technologies, and coaches and things like that. So I think we need to anticipate some of those early disruptions with the technology that's going to be out there so that our rate of change matches that of the rate of change of technologies that are there. So I think that's going to be really, really different. And then in terms of teacher practice, I think we're going to see a little bit more opportunity for residency-based practice for teachers rather than just your traditional prep programs. I think the grow your own programs and things like that are going to start to take root where teachers are, we grow them and we work with them much earlier than we do now in terms of their practice and their craft.
Thank you. So we have just a few minutes left. So this is an opportunity if you have any pressing questions for us, or if there's anything that we didn't cover in our questions that you want to make sure that we know, this is your opportunity.
Well, I just want to thank you again for being flexible and for taking my candidacy forward. And I'm just excited about Michigan and what you are wanting to do. I think there's a readiness there to really dig in, and I think that some of your urban school systems have the readiness and the hunger to move some leadership and to partner with the state in a new direction and really get some good results for children. I think it's going to take an all hands on deck. I often say that approach. I think it's going to take a more contextual approach. How you support rural schools is going to be different than how you supported Detroit Public Schools, for instance, and what those partnerships might look like and how you address the unique needs of each community and how you engage the community in that work. So really excited about the opportunity to speak with you further.
Great. Well, we really appreciate your interest in the position and taking the time to Skype with us today. We, as you know, we are finishing up first round interviews this week, and on Wednesday we'll narrow the candidate list down, and then second interviews will occur on May 7th. So once again, thank you so much. We really enjoyed hearing from you today and for your interest, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, and everybody enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so next for us is recess for lunch. We are slated to be back here at 1:45. Do you think we can make that? Okay, then we're gonna push to be back at 1:45.